My name is Adriana. Use she, her pronouns. I am a admission staff member in the undergraduate admission office, but really the guy with the information is Eric. So I'm going to let him talk for a while, and then I'll come back later to help answer some of those questions in the Q&A box.
Yeah, Adriana's gonna let me talk for a while, and then eventually she's gonna have to stop me from talking because I have a habit of talking a lot during these things. These are really fun for me. And hi, everybody. My name is Eric Weiss. I'm the Director of Programming for the Department of Performing Arts at Emerson College. This is my kitchen. You'll see at least one of my cats who likes to be on screen. Maybe the other one makes an appearance. If we have time, we can go over their names. Um, I'm an administrator and a teacher in performing arts. I oversee our role in our admission process, the arts part of the admission process, and I teach the Intro to Theater class for first year performing arts majors, which is so much fun to teach. I could do 45 minutes on that, but I've only got 45 minutes, and I've got so much to cover. There's just no 45 minutes created that can contain everything about my department. So I'm going to rip through a lot of information at pretty high speed. I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I possibly can. I read all the questions that you submitted in advance, and I'll try to work most of that stuff into what I talk about. And then Adriana will help me fill in the gaps of the things that I failed to answer. So let's dive in. Oh, that wasn't a very good diving in. There we go. Okay. So if you've looked at our website or took a tour or anything like that, you've probably seen that Emerson is an arts communications school. Well, what does that mean? I think of schools in which you can study theater as being on a spectrum. And at one end of that are conservatory training programs, and at the other end of that are liberal arts schools. Conservatory training programs imply that you're spending most or maybe all of your time in discipline related classes, in this case theater, and much less time or maybe no time in liberal arts classes, general education. And a liberal arts school implies the opposite: much more time in liberal arts, less time in theater classes. I say this with no judgment. I don't think there's a right way to go to college. I don't think there's a right way to study theater in college. I think there's your way. It's your job to figure out what of all of these places feel right to you. So I use that spectrum thing to put us on it. We're a hybrid, and we live in between those two ideas. Our split in classes is 60-40, 60% theater classes or electives, and 40% liberal arts or general education. And this mix is something my department feels really strongly about because we view the theater as a liberal art, and every play as a syllabus of topics that you have to know something about. So in my class, maybe my favorite play, Angels in America, which is just a really brilliant play. But if you don't know who Roy Cohn was, or the history of AIDS in this country, or the history of LGBTQ rights, you can't do that play. You can't direct it or design it or act in it. And every play, in some sense, is like that. And so, what we want our students to do is find the connections between what they're learning in the general education courses and pull that back into the theater classes and resist the temptation to see these things as separate, because they're not. So, underneath that philosophy, we offer 8 different BFA programs that cover every aspect of the professional theater. We put them in 3 groupings: offstage, backstage, and onstage. So I'm going to run through them with you now. For the offstage majors, a BFA in theater is an open-ended, well-rounded, broad degree in the theater intended for 2 different kinds of students. Either it's a student who has identified an area of the theater that they want to focus on that maybe doesn't live in one of our other programs. So directing, playwriting, arts administration, something like that, that lives off of the stage. Or it's for the student that says, the theater's my world, those are my people, but I'm not sure where I fit yet. I don't know what profession or job is waiting for me out there, and I want to get an undergraduate degree that allows me to explore that. A BFA in theater education also a broad-based, well-rounded degree in the theater, but it focuses on teaching theater or using the theater as a teaching tool. It can come with preliminary licensure to be a public school theater specialist in Massachusetts K through 12, complete with student teaching and all that jazz. But outside of licensure, there's plenty of usages for this degree. Most regional theaters employ an outreach coordinator for the purpose of getting grants to bring the work that they do into the community. So my point here is that there are more uses than just getting the licensure, although the licensure is really popular, as I'm sure you can understand. Moving on to the backstage programs, stage and production management and theatrical design and production are both really structured, focused programs, meaning they use almost all of the available credits. And starting with stage and production management, it's a program designed to train professional stage managers and professional production managers. It's built on an apprenticeship model where students work with a small group of faculty and are given assignments on main stage productions that get progressively larger, weightier, as they work their way through the school. It contains a core set of classes, stage management 1, 2, 3, 4, but then also ancillary classes that support that. So arts management, directing, on and on from there, that really make you a well-rounded, trained, ready stage manager. Theatrical design and production, similar. Also structured, focused, built on an apprenticeship model. Also assignments on main stage productions that get weightier the deeper you get into the program. That major has 3 different concentrations that you choose when you come into the school. Whoa, there's my phone. Yikes. Um, 3 different concentrations that you can choose from. So we've got scenic, lighting, and costumes. Scenic, lighting, and costumes. You pick one of those 3 concentrations, and all 3 of them have 2 lines of classes that work their way through. So the first line is a design line of classes. So you take foundations of stage design and then scenic design 1 and 2. And then the skills line, the other line, are the skills classes that support that. So costume construction 1 and 2, drafting, rendering, things like that. Again, so that you've got that well-rounded education in that area. Moving on to the performance majors, we actually have 4 different majors devoted to performers, 3 that you can apply to directly, and 1 that you can move into during your time here. The 3 you can apply to directly are theater and performance, theater education and performance, and musical theater. They all require an audition, although we're going to get to the application part in just a little bit. They share the same acting training, basically, for the first 2 years. I'm kind of simplifying this a little bit, but that is basically true. They share the same acting training for the first 2 years. Musical theater students are, of course, taking voice and dance and musicianship in addition to that acting training. And at the end of those first 2 years, those programs split up. Theater and performance also goes into upper level acting classes. They've got 5 more required acting classes, some of which are prescribed and some of which they choose. But that leaves them some electives to play with. And they could use those electives to perhaps add a minor, take a smattering of classes in other areas outside of performing arts, take other classes in performing arts in directing or playwriting or arts administration. Really, it's a degree for a contemporary theater maker that combines acting training with other interests as well. Theater education and performance also takes, or I should say, has access to upper level acting classes, but they do give some of that up so that they can get that theater education training. It's kind of a built-in double major there, right? They're getting acting training and teacher training. One of the interesting things about our program is that we don't have a school of education and a school of theater that are separate things. We have one degree that combines those things, and in my experience, that's pretty unique. Musical theater in those last 2 years goes into 14 hours a week of concentrated studio performance training time, probably as close to a conservatory as we get. They take dance every semester for 4 years. They take private voice every semester for 4 years. And it's also a pretty structured program using up almost all of those credits. If you think back to theater and performance for a second, at the end of 2 years, you'd have some choices about how you want to use your last 2 years. Do you want to take directing? You want to add a minor? One of the options in that program is to audition for our fourth performance major, and that's a BFA in acting. And if you get into that, then that is 14 hours a week of studio training, just like musical theater is. So you're probably saying, like, what's the difference between these acting programs? Why do you have more than one? Well, acting is more of that ensemble conservatory-ish style, and theater and performance is the more open-ended program. They both offer great acting training. It's just about how many hours are prescribed for you versus how many hours do you get to choose what classes you take. We think there's value in both, and that's why we offer both programs. Moving on to productions. So the producing area of the Department of Performing Arts is called Emerson Stage. It's run like a professional regional theater with professional staff, equity style rules and contracts so students can learn that kind of stuff. And it produces 7, 8, 9 shows a year on 5 main stages. We're super lucky to own a bunch of theaters, and Emerson Stage produces in 5 of them. We typically do 2 musicals, fall and spring. We do a new play festival every spring, a theater for young audiences piece every fall, and then 3 more straight plays that round out that season. Um, the season is chosen through a complicated multi-step process that includes students. So student perspectives, opinions, input are a part of that process to help season selection. I think that's important in 2025. Um, and then I should say, we've talked about how stage managers and designers integrate in that. In terms of performers, we keep our first year students from auditioning for main stage productions. They serve in a run crew during that first year, but then after that, they can audition for anything that happens on Emerson Stage. In fact, any major in performing arts can audition after their first year for anything that happens on Emerson Stage. So there's no barrier between straight acting and musical theater acting or anything like that. There's a lot of crossover, in fact. But then outside of Emerson Stage, an important part of a student's experience here, and I think one of the things that makes us who we are, is the incredibly active student theater scene that we have. We've got about 20 organizations devoted to production, comedy troupes, a cappella groups, dance companies. I think we're up to 7 or 8 um, theater companies that are entirely run by students. They're recognized by student government, which means that they have budgets. Each of them are producing 3, 4, 5 shows a season. That's a lot of theater that happens on our campus. It makes it a really productive, hardworking, positive environment in which to go to school, I believe. And all of the student theater is open to the entire college and available from the moment you step into campus. So the first year students can participate. There's no barrier there. So am I going to get to audition for stuff as a first year student? Well, maybe not the main stage stuff, but a lot of student theater, yes. And then outside of even this, we've got a really strong film school as well that constantly needs performers. It constantly needs support, constantly needs people to work on student films. So if you're interested in film, this is also a great place to go. In addition to having classes, acting for the camera style classes, we've got just a lot of practical experience that you can get, whether you're a performer or whether you want to work as a PA or make costumes or whatever you want to do. Moving right along. I'm trying to keep a good pace here. I hope I'm doing okay. So I mentioned spaces for a little bit, and if I'm only talking to performers, I actually don't think the spaces are that important. So I suppose I'm directing this a little bit to the design and stage management folks listening out there, because for a designer, for a stage manager, the spaces and the tools are really important. They're things that you need to learn how to use. And so the fact that we've got a bunch of theaters to get that work in is I think, meaningful. So starting On the left of the screen, I realize I can't point. That doesn't help anything. Is the Robert Orchard main stage. It's the kind of goldeny one. It's a 600-seat proscenium house. It's pretty new. I'd say about 15 years old. It's in the Paramount Center. You can see our next to that our makeup suite, dressing room area. And then the Jackie Liebergott black box, it's got the large bay doors at the back that go to our scene shop. Over on the right is a view from the stage of the Cutler Majestic Theater. It's a 1,000-seat, fully renovated, beautiful Beaux-Arts Broadway style proscenium house. You can see the tensile grid above the Semmel Theater, which is a 215-seat three-quarter round. Our drafting area on the 10th floor of the Tufte Production and Performance Center, and our costume shop, which is considered one of the best in Boston. Let's see, I did the Majestic, the Paramount Main Stage, the Black Box, the Semmel, the Green Theater. The last one that Emerson Stage produces in is a 115-seat theater row end stage. So think of like an off-Broadway style house on 46th Street with a set playing area and set raked seating. So those are the 5 that Emerson Stage produces in. We've also got 2 more black box spaces that are designated for student theater in the Student Performance Center. They come with some rehearsal studios for students for student theater and storage space, which is actually a sneaky important thing because before those spaces existed, students were storing set pieces in their dorm room, which, can be problematic. Anyway, okay, so moving on to applying. All applications start by applying to Emerson College first, and we take the Common App or the Emerson app. And once we receive that, undergrad admission will process your application, and then they'll send you an ID number in a couple days. So a couple things I want to clarify here. First, they're not grading your application yet. They're just processing it. And secondly, all you need to do to trigger them to send you that ID number is to be able to hit submit on the application, meaning you don't have to wait until everything that's going to come under separate cover arrives. So if you're waiting for recommendations, if you're waiting for test scores, we're test optional, but if you're waiting for test scores, stuff like that, transcripts, like yes, that can come later by the deadline, but you want to just get that started because it will trigger us sending you that ID number, which is going to be important in about 3 seconds. So you want to make sure if you want to that you apply to a major in the Department of Performing Arts. And then the artistic part of the application is housed in our partner website called Accepted. Accepted is an outside vendor that helps schools like organize the artistic part of the process. And we use them too. They're really great. So you're going to go to our Accepted page and you're going to fill out another application on that page. It's really straightforward. You're going to fill out that application and you're going to plug that Emerson Admission Office ID number into that application. That's how we connect the 2 applications to make sure, we've got them matched up right. Every application to performing arts has an artistic component that's housed in Accepted. And then, as I said, you want to make sure that you do submit the rest of the academic application by the academic application deadline. We're going to talk through what the artistic requirements are for all these majors. So first, in broad strokes, theater and theater education require a statement of interest and an interview with our faculty. Stage and production management and design and production, a portfolio, and an interview with our faculty. And then all the performance majors require an audition. Musical theater begins with a prescreen. Musical theater is the only program that has a prescreen. Let's dive into the specifics, shall we? So what we want for these 2 programs is a statement of purpose. Brief, basically, why do you want to come here? What do you want to do? We're just interested in why you want to get a degree like this. It's a springboard for having a conversation with you, essentially. It's a 30-minute time slot you're going to set up in Accepted. And you're going to meet over Zoom with one of our faculty or two of our faculty and talk with them. For stage management and design, you're going to submit a portfolio. And again, similar to the statement, we're interested in what your experiences have been, and we are not expecting perfection. I know that's surprising, but we're not. In particular, for the technical areas of the theater, there's such a broad range of support in high schools. I mean, let's be honest, there's a broad range of support for the arts in high schools across the country, in particular in the technical areas. So we're not expecting you necessarily to have been able to fully design a production or be the main stage manager on a huge production. All you can do is put in your portfolio what you've done. We're just interested in where you are in your development and all of this, and we want to talk with you about it. So try not to let this stuff intimidate you. Just put in your portfolio what you can put in, and we'll just talk with you about what's there. I hope I'm helping you. Again, 20 to 30-minute interview in a 30-minute time slot. Again, a discussion, not presentation. But I did put some examples of things that you could put in your portfolio, not that you have to put in your portfolio. We're trying to help you to give you some ideas. Obviously, stage management is a lot about organization and leadership. And so these are just examples of things that you might have done to help organize a production. We're just trying to give you some ideas of how to do that. And then for design, yes, of course, it can be theatrical design, but maybe you've done other artwork. And that's valid too. You could put that in so we can see kind of what your eye is like. All this stuff's on our website too, and I'm going to show you where that is at the end. So don't feel like you have to, write all this stuff down. For the auditions themselves, one thing I just want to point out, sorry. These are also virtual. We just found that the virtual interviews were so convenient and they worked so well because the slots are of a decent length. So that's why they're all virtual. When it comes to auditions, great. First, like I said, musical theater is the only program that has a pre-screen. You're gonna self-tape a monologue, 2 songs, and 60 to 90 seconds of dance. MTCP stands for the Musical Theater Common Pre-Screen. So the Musical Theater Common Pre-Screen was created at Paper Mill Playhouse, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago. And they got tired of, I don't blame them, of helping high school students film 20 different pre-screens, which is just a crazy amount of work. And they said, why can't we just get all of these schools to have one set of rules for pre-screens? And this seemed like a really good idea to us, so we joined on to that pretty early on. So the idea is that you have far fewer pre-screens to film that more schools will accept. It just makes the process a lot easier for you. That's the gist of it. So musical theater, monologue, 2 songs, 60 to 90 seconds of dance. We're going to get back to that in just a second. I'm an optimist, so you pass the pre-screen, and then you have access to scheduling an audition. Or if you're auditioning for one of the straight acting programs, theater and performance or theater education and performance, then you're just going to go in and schedule an audition. And these are the requirements: 2 monologues, 2 songs for musical theater. There's a dance call and a musicianship component. The musicianship component is an exercise to determine where you are in your development as a musician. So it's simple sight singing. It's some sing back, stuff like that. They'll test some scales, that kind of thing. When I talk to people live, I'm usually met with some fear when saying we have a musicianship component. So I'm going to assume that some of you are feeling that tension. I feel it. And I'm just going to say, like your portfolio, you have to put this in the bucket of things you can't control. You cannot go back in time and make yourself a prima ballerina or take 10 years of music theory or design 15 productions. You can't. All you can do is do what you can do right now and let go of everything else. Okay, that's my advice. All right. I've purposefully left out all of the nitty-gritty specifics about what kind of monologues, what kind of songs, because all of that can be found on our website, and I'm throwing a ton of information at you at the risk of overwhelming everybody. So I'm just going to show you where those resources are at the end so you can look that stuff up, okay? But we do auditions in Boston. Um, we do them virtually, and we do them as a part of the Nationally Unified Auditions in New York, Chicago, and LA. Quick word about the Unifieds. Another really great invention, but I think sometimes people feel that it's going to be you go to this one huge hall and there's representatives from 50 different schools in there. It's not the way it works. You're setting up an individual audition with all of these schools individually. The Unifieds are an agreement between a bunch of schools to hold auditions in the same locations on the same dates. So it's really convenient to do that, but you got to be realistic about how many auditions you can do in a day. There you go. Okay, so adding on to the advice portion of the evening, all the scheduling for all of these things, interviews and auditions, happens in Accepted. That's where it happens. The fact that we're having this conversation now and it's September is wonderful because this is a ton of work. I wish it were less work, but it's a ton of work. And so kind of jumping on this earlier, I think is wise. It just gives you more control over the process. The sad phone calls that I get are usually not when we release decisions. They're in February when somebody calls up and says, you've got 2 weekends left of interviews and I have tech in a show. You can't let that happen to yourself. You've got to try to plan this stuff out earlier than that to avoid that happening, okay? Make your schedule match your app. Choosing around early action, early decision one, regular has ramifications in terms of when we expect you to interview or audition. So choose those things knowingly. Read all the instructions first before choosing so that you know, like, oh, I'm hoping to do my audition in New York, but that means I'm applying regular. Because if I apply early, they're assuming I'm coming to Boston. So you just want to read all that stuff carefully, okay? And then resources. Oh, no, I'm not there yet. Whoops. Um, I'm laying this out so that you can get a sense of timing, because that's something I touched on a minute ago. What are our expectations about when you're going to interview? So if you're applying, for example, early action, we're expecting you to interview in mid-November. So if you get your application in like right at the deadline, and you're not ready to do that, like, oh no, now I have to go back and change it. So just try to be on top of that kind of stuff. And I'll also say that if you've got a really specific need for when you need to interview or audition, like I really can only do virtual. Totally fine. But it means you really shouldn't wait until right at the deadline because I don't think we're going to like run out of interviews or auditions, but we might run out of the day that you need. And if you wait to the last second, you just run some risk there. That's another one I don't want people to be disappointed. We want to be able to accommodate everybody, but we can do a better job of that if you apply a little bit earlier. That doesn't mean next week, but it just means try not to leave this stuff right to the end. Okay, resources. So the first one, we have this vanity URL that goes right to our page about applying to performing arts. And then our accepted page, which has almost all the same identical information. And then this is the Musical Theater Common pre-screen page. And I'm pointing this out because over on the right, it says MTCP requirements and guidelines. And then below that, it says tips and resources. Under resources on that page, a few schools, including Emerson, have put some videotaped choreography that you can use for your pre-screen because we believe that choreographing a piece and performing a piece are two different things. They're two different skill sets. So we're just trying to make this easier. It doesn't mean you have to use that or we really want you to use it. Nothing like that. Just trying to make your life easier by providing some choreography for you. So if it works, please use it. And then last but not least, my friends, this email goes to me, my assistant, Cheyenne, and then a small army of student employees that help answer questions. And can you look up my email? Yeah, probably you can, but you'll probably get a faster answer if you use this one just because there are more people looking at it and my email gets a little ridiculous, as you can imagine. So um, there you go. This is the prepared portion of the evening, and it's only 7:35. I'm so proud. So, Adriana,
All right. Sorry, I was answering one last question in the
like
Q&A
magic, you
box.
just appear.
I know, it's like I was stuck in the computer this whole time, and now here I am. So yeah, let's talk through a few of these questions. If you do have a question that we haven't touched on yet, feel free to pop that in the Q&A box. That would be wonderful. All right, let's start at the top. You touched on this a little bit, but I think it's worth revisiting quickly. Can you just talk about what reviewers are looking to see? I would say particularly in the pre-screen, things that are submitted online. And then maybe a little bit about what they're looking for in auditions.
Sure. And I think what's hard about this is if there was just like one thing that we were just waiting to see, it would be easy. It'd be like, well, if you just can do a double backflip, then but it's not. We're not casting a show. We're not hiring a designer. We're not doing any of those things. We're looking at students that might come and live here and learn here. And so we're interested in who you are. So I'd say for all of the processes that we run, interviews, auditions, to quote a friend of mine who said, we want to see who you are through the vessel of what you've chosen, which I just love. It's so poetic, but it's true. We're interested in you. So pick things that you care about, that you want to show us. Come in and be yourselves. I'd say the tone of our whole process is a lot like this webinar. We try to have fun while we're doing this. We try to make it a welcoming environment. We're just as interested in you as hopefully you are in us. So it's not like there's one magical thing you can do in your pre-screen and that's all you got to do. It's like just put together the best pre-screen you can and send it in and we'll see how it goes. I know that's kind of an unhelpful answer, but it's an honest one.
I think it actually pairs nicely with I'm often asked the question, well, how do I like stand out in my application? And I often answer that by saying, I actually don't need you to stand out. That's not what we're necessarily looking for. What we're trying to do is answer the question, are you going to have the opportunity to be successful at Emerson if we admit you? By looking at a lot of the things that you've done already to determine, like, hey, we want you to have a really good shot. If you come here, we want you to be able to um, take and do well in classes. We want you to graduate on time with a degree. We want you to have the skills necessary to get a job afterwards. So we want to set you up for that success through reviewing your application and determining, okay, is Emerson a good place for you to do that at?
And I think honestly, one of the keys for you being comfortable in your interview is to feel like you're prepared. Honestly, I think that's the way to get rid of most of the nerves you might be feeling, which is to prepare as best you can and be ready and be comfortable to come in and show us who you are.
Absolutely. And I just want to reiterate, just because we won't be able to get into the nitty-gritty for all of these things like um, contemporary versus classic monologues and details like that are all on that website that's listed
Yeah,
right
and
on
if
the
there's
screen,
and if
right?
there's a detail that you don't see, like email us. I mean, that's why we've got that email account. So like, please, like ask us questions. There's no question that we're going to be annoyed that you ask. It's okay.
Absolutely. Um, do students have the opportunity to assistant direct any of the main stage productions? I think we
They
often think
do.
about, Emerson Stage in terms of acting, but what about the other things that are going on?
Oh, well, I mean, we covered the stage management and the design aspects, but we use students all over Emerson Stage as assistant directors. I think just about every M Stage show that goes up has a student assistant director. We have dramaturgs, we have marketing people, we have company managers, we have production managers. We have a full complement of roles for students to play that are not just performance. So like I said, it's an incredibly productive environment, and one of the things I love about it is you can be something extracurricularly that's a little different from what you are curricularly. So when you take into account the volume of student theater as well, there's ways to explore other roles, and I don't mean performance roles, other roles in the arts that you want to try out. And that's what I think is so great about it, is it breeds a kind of entrepreneurial spirit where students get practice in making their own work.
A couple of folks are asking, can you just talk about how many students are kind of in each of the programs?
Sure, sure. I think the easiest way to talk about that is talk about kind of incoming class size. So typically, musical theater, we want to start with about 18 students. If we're a little higher or a little lower, it's not tragic, but 18 is about what we want there. Stage management, it's about 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there. Design, I'd say 20 to 25. For admission purposes, we can think of BFA theater and BFA theater ed as combined. We'd like to have, I don't know, 15, 20 students in those two areas combined. For theater and performance and theater education and performance combined, again, for admission purposes, we can think of those as combined, about 75 in those two programs combined, something like that.
Thank you. Um, can we talk a little more about how to be involved in the student theater productions? Are there any limits on who can participate in those, and what kinds of things do students do there?
Oh goodness. So my challenge with this is that it really is run by students. It's not like secretly run by the faculty. So sometimes my information is a little limited. But what I do know is that one of my student employees many years ago realized that all of these student organizations were holding individual auditions. So, like the Unifieds, I would say, inspired by the Unifieds, she created something at Emerson called the Common Auditions. So, I think at minimum every semester, probably a little more often than that, probably like 3 times a year, all of these student theater companies have a huge audition session and interview session to get designers, stage managers, actors, and anybody can participate in that. And then, of course, what I see is students that are inclined in this way join organizations to fulfill leadership roles. So whether they're directing productions or designing or being treasurer or whatever the role might be, um, they really do broaden their scope in student theater. Like I said, it's open for everybody in the school. Obviously, lots of performing arts students participate because that's their primary focus. But yeah, it's I really see it as a positive. Did I answer that question at all?
I think so. If
Okay.
whoever asked has a follow-up, feel free to pop that in the Q&A. And I just want to clear up one thing about Emerson Stage as well,
Yeah.
um, because I think again it's one of those conceptions that we come up with. Um, as an example, you don't need to be a musical theater major to audition for a musical,
Correct.
things like that. All of the kind of positions or and roles are open regardless of major within the performing arts department, correct?
Yes. So there's a little bit of restriction only in the design and stage management areas. Those two areas are for those students that are studying there. Everybody serves on a run crew. Um, but then in terms of performance roles, that's open to everybody in performing arts. There is not a restriction by major of who can do what kind of role. I will say getting cast in a musical is fairly competitive if you're not a musical theater major, but it's also not weird or unusual at all. I think every main stage musical goes up with some non-MTs cast in it.
And I will say too, a great example that I like to think about all the time is we have alumni from this program who were all shades of the performance majors and things who have gone on to do maybe slightly different things in their professional lives. So folks who weren't musical theater majors who are still, you know, singing, dancing, and acting in musicals, things like that. It's, you're not restricted to exactly your category in a
No,
sense.
not at all. I know of two fairly recent graduates who are doing a ton of voiceover work. They were both musical theater graduates. So I actually think it's a hallmark of that major as well that doesn't limit you to just musical theater. They've got Shakespeare built into it. They've got access to other classes. So yeah, yeah. I think some flexibility is a hallmark of our department, to be honest with you.
I was gonna say I was even gonna broaden it farther. I think it's a hallmark of Emerson in the sense of we do
Yeah.
focus on some somewhat specific things in the sense of we're a school that focuses on communication, arts, film, but within those areas, the number of things that people have gone on to do is just astronomical and is certainly not limited to those particular categories.
Yeah, and to just go into that a little bit deeper in terms of curricularly, I kind of touched on this. I didn't say a lot of it. And know this question came up in the questions that were submitted beforehand. But some of the majors have electives built into them, and others are a little more tight. But coming into college, what you bring in with you from high school can change that number of electives that you have. So if you took AP classes, or you get the 4 credits of math waived here, or the 8 credits of foreign language waived here, you can create enough electives for yourself to add a minor. And that is exceedingly common, even for really structured programs like stage management. It's there's no rule that says adding a minor is bad or we don't like it or anything like that. It's entirely a function of credits. And if you can create enough elective credits, like many students do, to add a minor in hearing and deafness, absolutely go for it.
But we've had a few folks ask about this. Is there a space within these programs for folks who are interested in acting for film and television specifically? And those are two separate things, but just
Yeah, yeah.
generally.
Yeah. So first, we don't have an acting for camera major. I would also suggest that it's not a completely different art form, right? It's they share so many of the same core requirements in terms of what you need to learn and what you need to be able to do. But built into the straight acting programs is a semester of on-camera acting in the spring of your sophomore year, scene study 2 on-camera acting. Everybody in a straight acting program is going to take that class. And then we offer an advanced level of that as well. That is an elective for theater and performance students and available to musical theater students, theater ed and performance students, BFA acting students, even if you have 4 credits that you want to spend. You could take the second in that section of classes. In addition, we didn't really talk about external programs, but we have a campus in LA, and it's popular for students that are interested in film and television. It's really a program built on internships in film and television, but I think that that's a wonderful opportunity to spend a semester in LA, usually senior year, live out there, see if you want to live and work there. get an internship. I mean, honestly, as a young actor, I wish I had gotten an internship in a casting agency. I think I would have learned a great deal, probably saved myself a little heartache along the way. So I mean, that's eminently a possibility if those are really your goals, your interests.
And I'll just say, just to kind of complete the circle on what we were just talking about before, we certainly have plenty of alumni who have come through our programs and they've gone on to great careers, acting on film, in films, on television, things like that as well. Um, Couple of maybe rapid fire questions here are
Ready.
for folks applying to theater or theater education, should they be bringing a portfolio to their interview?
Wow, what a great question. If you've got something that you want to show and talk about, it's not a requirement. You don't have to, but um, I don't see why not. If you've got stuff that you want to show to your interviewer and talk about, go for it.
Is it possible to start in theater and performance and then switch into musical theater later?
Gotcha. So in general, it's easy to go from the programs that are more structured to the programs that are more flexible, but not the other way around. So because of the number of people also that apply to musical theater, we don't let anybody switch majors into musical theater. So if that's your dream, I would apply to musical theater first. I wouldn't try to go to another program and then get into it. But if you start in musical theater, um, it's pretty easy to go from there to theater and performance. It's just a very flexible program that can accommodate some adding some people.
Do folks in theater and performance do voice and dance lessons, or is that just a musical theater thing?
Yes. So voice and dance are required for 4 years for musical theater students, but for everybody else at Emerson, it's something you could opt to do if you wished to. The question is, what do you want to do it? Do you want to use elective credits to take dance classes? And we do offer a dance minor, and our dance classes are really popular, so that's pretty common actually. Private voice, you can do either as a 2 credit class or as you can do for 0 credits and pay, I think it's $1,400 a semester for 14 weeks of private voice. Again, fairly popular, not super uncommon. So yes, you can. It's just a question of how many credits you want to use on those kinds of things. I also just, full disclosure, I don't think it's a realistic thing to do necessarily in your first year in theater and performance because you've got so many requirements. But definitely after your first year, it's something you could probably do sophomore year, and I think junior, senior year, that's exceedingly realistic.
How many people graduate typically from performing arts majors within 4 years?
Oh, within 4 years, all of them. I mean, it's not like secretly a 5 year program or a 4.5 year thing. Not at all. I think our Adriana, what's the number? How many students do we retain? Is that the way you say it in admission?
Yeah, it's called the retention rate, and
That's a
for some
retention
reason
rate.
that I still
Tip of my
don't.
tongue. Did you feel that? All right. So the retention rate, the last time I heard was given a number was 89%, which is considered really good. And that's how many people stay in the program, I think after first year, or is that right? Whatever. Anyway, you get the idea. Most of our students stay, and unless they're choosing to do something for more than 4 years, it only takes them 4 years. That was like a 15-minute answer for a super simple question. I'm so sorry.
No, that's totally fine. Um, uh, One question kind of about that musicianship component, because I'm sure I would be a little nervous about that if I had to do it. I
Yes.
understand that. If someone doesn't know how to sight read at all, is that something that they should kind of start preparing for now before they step into that audition space?
Oh, that's a tough one. I hesitate to tell people to like bend over backwards. You know, um, I'm just, I just hesitate to tell people to start doing outrageous stuff. I think there's a couple ways you can play it. If you would feel happier, more comfortable, more confident trying to learn some basics of that kind of stuff, sure. I'm not suggesting you drop out of high school and devote your time entirely to music theory. Just a happy medium in there. Also, a question I didn't really answer was about timing. I saw a bunch of questions about timing. So I can spend a second. Is that okay? All right. So a lot of people ask questions about like what's the best time to submit my pre-screen or when's the best time to apply and that kind of stuff. And there's not really a best time. Um, I do think applying early action and early decision, I think it's a hair easier to get into the school. This has been my experience anecdotally. I remember one year I sat down and I worked out the percentage rate, regular versus early, and it was a little bit easier. So if you're feeling ready, your portfolio's ready, your audition's ready, whatever it is, yes, I would encourage you to do it early. But the most important thing is that you present the strongest application that you can. And if that means doing it in January, do it in January. Like it's not worth sacrificing what you're going to present just to do it in November.
Exactly. Exactly. You're going to have a far greater chance of success with your strongest application than any amount of early timing would make up for. So certainly take the time that you need to prepare thoroughly, to do your application thoroughly, and that'll come out way better in the long run. One final question we have here, which I can start on, and then if you want to add information, please feel free. Are there scholarship opportunities? So, yes, all of our merit scholarships are open to all majors. So, there's no restrictions there. For the vast majority of them, there's nothing you have to do to be considered. So, we would let you know with your admission decision if you received a merit scholarship, and that would be all there is to it. There are two exceptions. And there were a couple of pre-submitted questions about our honors program. So, in case you didn't know, we do have an honors program at Emerson that largely impacts your liberal arts classes that you take. So, it really has nothing to do with your major per se. Every major is eligible to apply for it, even musical theater. It's certainly an exercise in time management, but it can be done. Um, and so there is an essay you have to submit to be considered for that honors program. So just keep that in mind. Deadline is on the website for that. And the final program that you do have to apply for is our Creative Circle Scholars program. So there isn't an essay to apply for that program. Um, and we would review that along with your other materials and would invite finalists for an interview for that one. So just some things to keep in mind there, but everybody is eligible. I see a quick secondary question. So merit scholarships are different than need-based aid. If you want to be considered for need-based aid, that has to do with you and your family's financial circumstances. You want to fill out the FAFSA. That is a free application for federal student aid that is available for US citizens and eligible non-citizens. So as long as you fill that out, we will consider you for need-based aid. They are two different things. They can be stackable. That would fully depend on your financial circumstances. So I just wanted to make sure folks were aware of those opportunities. Um, let's see if we
Can
can
I
see
add one
these
thing to
last
that?
couple of questions. Yeah.
Yeah, performing arts also offers a small number of artistic merit awards. They work the same way as the merit awards that admission offers. They don't require a request or an additional application or anything like that. If you get into performing arts, you will automatically be considered for them and you'll be notified with your acceptance if you get one.
Awesome. Last couple of quick questions here. So there's apparently, because I don't know if I realized this, there's a space in accepted where you can write notes if you're submitting a portfolio. We can kind of write notes at the bottom. Do you all utilize those, like say explaining what you're seeing in a photo or how a piece was created, things like that?
You can if you want to. Again, we're like open to your portfolio being what your portfolio is going to be. And if you want to comment on it or write yourself a note to remind yourself what you want to say about it when we're talking about it, that's totally fine. But if there's things you just want to tell us and help us frame what we're looking at, that's totally okay too. It really is a fairly open-ended process there. We're open to whatever it is you want to show us.
And last question, I think you talked about LA a little bit and some of the opportunities there. We do have a study abroad program at our campus in the Netherlands as well that anyone can participate in, although I believe musical theater would need to go during the summer. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, and we just added, it's pretty new, so I don't know a ton about it, but a Linkletter voice semester at the castle, I believe, in the summer. So
Ooh.
Linkletter voice is the standard for voice for the actor in many, many college theater programs. And Kristen Linkletter is kind of famous, and she used to be the head of acting here at Emerson College. So we still feel her presence, and we have this summer program where you go and you focus on that for, I think, a 5-week intensive.
Absolutely. And last question here. Are there any, this was actually a lead up to that question. Are there any theater specific study abroad opportunities, maybe in the Global Pathways programs?
Yeah, so the one that I just mentioned in the Netherlands, and then we've got a midwinter program in Chile with one of our faculty to go and study an arts festival that happens every midwinter in Chile, which is cool. It's I think an 8 credit experience or maybe a 4 credit experience. You go over with Nathaniel Justiniano and follow that festival. It's pretty cool. Oh, hey, you're muted, Adriana.
After, a few years, you would think I would learn, but yeah, here we are. So we're at 8 o'clock, so I do want to wrap things up. If there's a question or two left in the Q&A, I'll go ahead and answer that off screen in a second. But just a couple of things to keep in mind. All of the website and the contact information that's on screen for you, of course, for the performing arts folks. I'm also going to put a little bit of the admission contact information in the chat just so you have that as well. We're certainly happy to help with questions that you have, and if there's any we don't know about, we'll pull in Eric and his team. Um, as I mentioned at the beginning of this session, we do have an open house coming up. There's one in September that registration is open for now. There will be one in October as well. That one's just not online for registration quite yet. If you go to emerson.edu/are you ready, that's a great place to start your Emerson journey, including being able to sign up for that open house. I did also want to plug, so this was our first webinar, and due to some scheduling fun, our second webinar is going to be on Thursday. So if you are interested in hearing about overall application tips, some tips about how to write your personal essay, myself and some colleagues on the admission team are going to be talking through that part of the process. So we would welcome you to join us. You'd register the same way you registered for this one. Students, you'll have a link in your email to register through kind of your file in our admission system. Any parents and family members, your email link will take you to register through Zoom. So we would love to have you join us for that one. We thank you for joining us at this one, and we will look forward to seeing you at the next one. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.